We just started bringing in people to really that were strong at things I was weak at. I can be like a visionary and stuff like that, but I'm not a guy that can run a business day to day because I don't have any experience doing that. That's not my forte. It's not what I want to do.
Wherever you guys are watching this show, I would truly appreciate it if you follow or subscribe. It helps a lot with the algorithm. It helps us get bigger and better guests, and it helps us grow the team. Truly means a lot. Thank you guys for supporting, and here's the episode. Ladies and gentlemen, first guest in the new studio, Jeremy Lee Minor, my man.
What's up, man? Thanks for having me on your show. We were like swerving around trying to find this place. We're like, what is going on? Because I was watching some of your shows yesterday, and I watched a couple of shows this morning. I'm like, this doesn't look like the same place. I'm like, where are we? But they're like, no, this is the place.
Yeah.
I appreciate being on the show.
Absolutely,
what do you want to discuss today?
I know you talk a lot about sales. I think we'll touch on that, but there's so many videos of you teaching that.
Typically, as a sales training company, it might be a good thing to, talk about sales here and there.
Yeah, we could dive into it, but
no,
you
I don't care.
You have so many videos training.
We do. Yeah,
we'll touch on that. I want to dive more into the scaling side of things. Okay. I haven't seen you talk about that much. So how old is this company?
We're still trying to figure it out, man.
Yeah. But we were just talking your revenues earlier. I'm super impressed. And the company's only 4 or 5 years old.
We started in late 2018. Okay. So, that would be, I don't know, we're year 5 right now. And, the first, almost the first 2 years, there was me and my assistant. And I brought her over from my job. I retired in 2017, took about 6-7 months off, figured out what was I going to do now. And then Beth Jolly, she's head of customer service. Shout out to Beth. She's still with me. And I'm like, hey, when I started the sales training company, you want to come work? She's like, I'm in. And for the first probably 19 months, I dumped a lot of money into it and lost a lot of money. It was me and my assistant.
Oh, so you weren't profitable the first 2 years?
No, the first year I think we did, I want to say like 1.3 million in revenue.
Okay.
I did like 3 or 4 webinars trying to figure it out. I didn't know what I was doing. And I think I spent 1.9 million.
Wow.
So I lost like 600 grand. So I'm like, okay, so if I keep losing 600 grand, how many years can I go before I need to come out of retirement to start making money again as a salesperson? So,
and you stacked up a safety net before you started your own business, right? You were a top sales guy at other companies.
Yeah, supposedly. Yeah. So I made a few bucks as a salesperson, but a lot of those, my last 2 sales jobs, I negotiated being a 1099, so better for taxes. My first 2 was more W-2. And when you make the type of commissions I was making, you're getting hit at the top.
40%.
For sure. Yeah, plus state taxes. So pretty much like 45% is gone. So
were you in Cali?
No, I wasn't. I was in Missouri, but still, I think when President Obama was in charge, it was like maybe 39%. I could be wrong, like 37, 39%. And then state tax there, top bracket is 5%. So 44, 45%. As a W-2, you can't write off as much.
Right.
So let's say, in my best years, I was making over a couple $1 million a year in commissions. And, half of it would go to, just go away. So, people think you made a lot of money, but the government got a lot of it. But,
so 1099 is your advice for people getting into sales?
It really depends on what type of industry you're in. If you're in large enterprise B2B companies, most of the time they're not going to let you do that. Right. So it depends on what you're doing. Like if you're selling solar, you're going door to door, you're probably 1099 already. It just depends on the company and the industry with regard to what you can do.
That makes sense. Yeah. Okay, so walk me through that 3rd year where you became profitable. What was that switch that happened?
We just started bringing in the right people. Well, we just start bringing in people, right? So, I got a CEO, I got a chief revenue officer. We didn't call those people those titles then because we were too young. I mean, there's like 10 or 12 of us, right? You don't call oh, this is my senior vice president and there's 5 other people in the company. You get to those levels once you have the employees. We have 163 employees now.
Wow.
So we probably had a year and a half ago, maybe 50 or 60. So, we've grown a lot in the last probably year and a half from the rails and stuff, but you bring in the right people. Like I always say, you can have the best products, you can have the best services out there, but if you don't have the right people running the organization, unless that's your strength, you're really not going to go anywhere. If nobody knows who you are, it doesn't really matter, right? Nobody even knew probably who really I was until probably 2.5 years ago. That's when we really caught fire because we started doing reels about 2 years ago. I didn't even have an Instagram account until October of 2021.
Wow.
I had 0 followers.
You were doing sales without any social media.
Yeah, so we did Facebook ads.
Okay.
So, the first when we started becoming profitable in 2020, I think we did a little bit under 5 million in revenue in 2020, where we actually made money. I'm like, oh wow, I can actually pay myself a little bit of cash. You know, it's like I went from like a salesperson making all this money. Now as a
All right, guys, shout out to today's sponsor, Babbel. 1 in 5 Americans have learn a new language on their bucket list. If that's you, make 2024 the year you finally check it off the list. Don't pay hundreds of dollars for private tutors anymore or waste hours on other apps that don't really help you speak the language. Babbel has quick 10-minute lessons that are handcrafted by over 200 language experts to help you start speaking a new language in as little as 3 weeks. It's designed by real people for real conversations. Babbel has really helped me lock in Spanish. My fiance's family is all Latina, and now I'm able to communicate with her family members, and it's awesome. Studies from Yale, Michigan State University, and others continue to prove that Babbel is better. One study found that using Babbel for 15 hours is equivalent to a full semester at college. They have over 16 million subscriptions sold, plus all of their 14 award-winning language courses are backed by their 20-day money-back guarantee. Here's a special limited time deal for our listeners. Right now, get up to 60% off your Babbel subscription, but only for our listeners at babbel.com/social hour. That's babbel.com/social hour, spelled BABBEL.com/social hour. Rules and restrictions may apply.
business owner, I'm like, this kind of sucks. Like maybe I should just be a salesperson. Like I made way more money as a salesperson. And I think a lot of times when you're a salesperson, or even you could be an executive of a company, an SVP or a chief sales officer, whatever you are, then you go start your own business. It's like a whole different ballgame,
right?
Because now you're responsible for employees. You've got to pay for the building. You've got to pay for, the pencils. You've got to pay for everything. Legal, everything. And you might make all this money, but then at the end of the day, it's like most of it's gone, right? So, we just started bringing in people to really that were strong at things I was weak at. Like I wasn't a CEO. Like I can be like a visionary and stuff like that, but I'm not a guy that can run a business day to day because I don't have any experience doing that. That's not my forte. It's not what I want to do. Obviously, as a professional salesperson, that's the world I came from. I was really good at recruiting, right? I was really good, obviously, at sales. I was good at that type of stuff, and obviously sales training. And that's where I needed to be full-time to focus on that. So really, in my company, I'm removed from the day-to-day business of the company. I'm not on a lot of meetings and stuff unless they're like really, really important, like with we're looking at the COO from a huge company that we're about to bring on.
Yeah.
And so I'm meeting with them, that type of thing. But most of the time I'm focused on creating more sales training programs. We have 36 different sales training programs. Wow. I'm focused on, being on podcasts like this. I'm focused on, I only do 2 keynotes a month. Like I turn down most of them because I don't want to be gone every other day, right? I'm writing a new book right now. So like I'm focused on sales training, which if you're a sales trainer, that's probably what you want to focus on. You want to let somebody that's really skilled at running a business. Those are 2 separate things. Do their thing. It'd be like Tony Robbins running the day-to-day operations of his company. No, he has a CEO that does that.
Yeah.
He focuses on his strengths.
That makes sense. Yeah. So the first 2 years you were basically wearing all the hats. You were doing everything.
Which I didn't know how to do. I was wearing hats that I should not have been wearing.
Yeah.
But sometimes, when you start, it's not like, like even though I've made a lot of money as a salesperson, I didn't have like $50 million in venture capital to be able to go and hire, somebody from McKinsey or something to run the company or anything. So you kind of have to you just kind of, bootstrap it. And as you go, you have more cash flow and you're able to bring in more people. And that's where we're at now. Even though we have 160 some employees, there's a lot of employees in the last couple of years that were just kind of they're like bodies thrown into positions. Like, oh, you're average at sales. Oh, you're kind of analytical. Maybe you should be the VP of ops, or let's have you be the ops or ops guy or whatever. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're qualified for that position. It doesn't mean they can't learn, but you want to bring in people that have already done the thing you want to do.
Right.
And you can't really do that until you have the necessary cash flow to be able to pay those type of people. And that's where we're at now, where we've grown so fast. This year, we're focused on very slower growth this year to replace some of those key positions with better people, better talent, and then we'll scale more in 2025.
Right. That's smart, because I've heard when companies scale too quick, it's actually a problem.
It's a huge problem. It's a huge problem of fulfillment. Like we could probably, my CEO says this all the time, we could literally probably double our revenues overnight with our marketing spend, because we get leads so freaking cheap. We do marketing a little bit different.
I get your ads every day, bro.
Yeah. You probably read. Yeah, we do ads a lot different than most companies.
Yeah.
So our spend compared to what we make as a company is unheard of. When I tell people, they're like, holy crap, no way. And I'm like, show you what it looks like, But the reason why we're slowing down is because, especially fulfillment. If you the worst thing you can do for your brand is not fulfill on what people are purchasing from you.
Right.
And as a sales training company, we would rather slow down our growth and make less money to make sure that we have enough people in fulfillment, enough sales trainers, and I have enough bandwidth to make sure that our clients get maximum results. It is way more important for us as a company, as a brand, to make less money so our clients get better results. That's how your brand is around 25 to 50 years from now when you're not even here on this planet.
Right.
And that's what we're building as a company that will be here even when I'm not here. So a lot of our branding, you'll see it won't necessarily be around me. It might be around our methodology, NEPQ. It might be around the corporation, 7th level. So when sometimes people are like, oh, you know, how does it feel being an influencer? I'm like, I'm not an influencer. Like, it's like almost a stop and face. I'm like, I'm not really an influencer. Like, we don't really do that much on our social media. We're a sales training company. Like we, you know, do Fortune 500 companies buy sales training from influencers?
No.
Not really. No, they buy it from sales training companies. And that's really what we are.
Yeah.
Now, you know, do we have a good social media following? I think it's decent, but we haven't really done much with it yet.
Yeah. Yeah. You were just saying you just made Instagram 2 years ago. How many followers are you out there?
I'd have to, I think we had like 670 some thousand.
It's pretty good.
It's all been all from the reels. You know, we do like 200 reels a month on each platform now. It's like 5 or 6 a day, or I don't even know what it is. I'm not sure. We have so much content. It's like crazy.
Content's king, baby.
Well, you know Austin.
Yeah. Austin's a beast.
So we're partners with him now. We acquired a portion of his company, and now he's taking over he took over our YouTube like 3-4 months ago and did really, really well with it. So we're like, okay, let's acquire, you know, a portion of his company and have him take over our IG and, you know, some other things that we're doing to really scale it up. So, but you know, the good thing about our social media, it's very targeted. Like if we wanted to go broad and like generalized and stuff like that, in my mind, it's harder to get larger companies that way, if that makes sense. Like if I'm sitting here talking about like, here's what I eat today, and hey, I know a lot of influencers do that, and that's great. Or, you know, here's how my relationship is, or here's what I do with this, or here's my favorite foods. That's totally cool. But people watch our content because they want to sell more. Yeah. Right. And that stuff doesn't really help them sell more. It just doesn't.
That's true. You keep it strictly sales, man. I was listening to a few podcasts of yours, and I couldn't find anything other than sales.
Well, we're a sales training company. You know, I don't know. Like if you're a fitness company, you're probably talking about fitness, you know, but no, there's some, like I was just on Cody Sperber's show. I became really good friends with him. He's down in Arizona. He's a big real estate investor. I love that guy. And he's like, I don't want to talk to you anything about sales. He's like, I know you're the tactical sales training company. He's like, I just want to talk to you about personal stuff. It's actually really cool because nobody's ever asked me some of those questions.
Yeah, you know? that's kind of how I model my show too. Yeah, because everyone's seen your sales stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So the 4th year, was that your first 8-figure year? Because you said the 3rd year you did 5 million.
Yeah. The 3rd year did a little bit under. It was like 4.8 million. And if the FTC is watching, don't quote me. I could be off by $10,000 or $20,000, but I'm very close. I'm always worried.
People like round numbers.
Yeah. You know, so I see a lot of people exaggerate numbers. And to me, I'm like, why are you doing that? Like, just be proud of what you've done. You know,
it's ego.
Yeah, I guess, I don't know. But you could get in trouble for your ego.
You can.
You know, because there's a thing called the FTC. Yeah. You know, and you can't exaggerate numbers because it's going to come back and bite you. So anyways, 3rd year was that 2021. I think we did a little bit under 17 million.
Wow. So that was a 4X year.
We did a big jump. That was when Inc. magazine ranked us the fastest growing. I think we were like number 1,200 fastest growing companies in the United States. They don't rank sales training companies, of course, but when we looked through the list, we were the fastest growing sales training company. But you had to submit your financials for that. Yep. It's not like you can't just
BS it.
Grandma says I'm the fastest growing sales trainer. I love all the sales trainers. Like, we're the #1 sales training company in the world. We're the fastest growing. I'm like, who said that, Grandma?
Think I know who you're talking about?
Like, well, I don't even know. Like, here's the thing. Like, everybody says that, right? It's like the salesperson says we have the #1 product or service. Like, you hear every salesperson says that, so you're kind of like, yeah, sure, right?
Yeah, the #1 thing is kind of misleading.
Yeah, it drives us nuts because you probably will never hear me say that in the ads. You don't hear me say like, oh, we were this, we were that. We just talk about sales. Yeah. And you know, you're going to get results from that. So you start, you know, you get into our training programs like our clients are, you're going to start getting results. And we let people make that decision themselves. It's kind of like, you know, you look at Tom Brady. Or, you know, he doesn't go out there and he's like, oh, I'm the #1 quarterback in the world. He doesn't have to say that because he just goes out and performs. Right. And the rest just, you know, they see him. Now, maybe they don't think he is. maybe they think Peyton Manning's better or Joe Montana or whatever, but that's the kind of the way we are. We just, you know, it's kind of like that quote from Steve Martin. I don't know if Steve Martin said that, but he said, become so great that they can't ignore you. I've always been like that as a kid. You know, I played college sports and everything. I wasn't the most athletically gifted in my whole state, but I outworked everybody. I outperformed everybody. And that got me scholarships in college and stuff.
What was your sport?
I played baseball.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I played baseball. So, you know, anyways, there's a lot of that. I don't want to be like the Heisman Trophy guy, like, oh, I was this and that in baseball. Like, nobody cares, right?
Yeah.
That was a long time ago. But just let your performance show everybody what you're doing.
Yeah.
You know, if your performance, people will see it.
Let
you
your
know,
work speak for itself.
Let your work speak for yourself. Yeah.
Yeah. When
That's
you're
the way
self-boasting, you kind of lose a little respect, I think. You know?
Yeah. And I get why people do that. You know, I think sometimes I came from nothing. So sometimes when you come from nothing, you have like a really big chip on your shoulder. So when you make it, you're just like, I made it. I'm better than everybody else. But if you feel that way, you just got to really keep it to yourself in my mind. You know, just go out and perform, show people what you did, and people are just going to see that you're really good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Did you go through a materialistic phase in your 20s where you were just buying cars, watches, and stuff?
You know, not really, because I got married. I got married when I was 22.
Wow.
I'm divorced now. I had a daughter on the way. I have a 23-year-old
Oh, so shotgun
daughter.
wedding?
Yeah, I have a 20. Well, not really. No, we is a honeymoon baby or whatever. But I was married when I was really young. I would barely turn 22. She was 19.
Jeez.
And
but in the South, that's common.
Yeah,
right?
we had a kid on the way.
Missouri.
Well, I lived in Utah at that time. I was going to college. Yeah, I was going to college in Utah. So I went for school for behavioral science and human psychology, social dynamics, study the brain, how human beings make decisions. So when I got into sales, I looked at sales differently than probably most sales trainers look at sales.
Right.
But yeah, so I just, you know, I didn't really, when I started making quite a bit of money as a salesperson, you know, 20 years ago, like even when I was making like, I think my third year, because I got into door-to-door sales when I was going to school, selling alarms, because you'd sell in a 4-month summer period, and then the rest of the year you'd go to school. But I'd make around $400,000 every summer.
Damn.
But you know, 2002, $400,000 is probably worth like $600 now. I don't even know what it was.
Probably more, honestly.
Maybe more. I don't even know, right? With inflation. So, you know, did we overspend? Yeah, but it wasn't like I was buying Lambos or going to clubs like I had a kid, you know, so we were buying like the Suburban, you know, we were buying the new house, you know, the stuff like that. But, you know, I never really got into the party scene because I got married so young and had kids so young that I just, you know, and that's probably good. Probably kept me out of trouble, you know?
Yeah. Very rare to see someone
focused,
that didn't go through that phase.
Yeah.
Now you were in Utah, so were you part of the Mormon culture too?
The LDS, LDS, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So it's a great culture out there. You know, people, I like it. I like the mountains out there.
Yeah.
I think people are genuine and nice and stuff. And then I moved away from there back to Missouri in 2006, 2007. So, and then in 2.5 years ago, because the first 2 years was basically out of my home office in my house in Springfield, Missouri, of all places. And then 2.5 years ago, I relocated to Scottsdale because that's where my 2 oldest were going to college.
Got it.
So I was like, we'll just go to Scottsdale. That's where they're at. And then yeah, that's where we're at now. Yeah.
What are your honest thoughts of your kids going to college? How do you feel about it?
You know, it depends on what you want to do, right? Like if you want to be an entrepreneur, I don't think it's a bad thing.
Okay.
You know, I don't think it's a bad thing, but I don't think it's a thing that you have to do to be successful. But like I said, it depends on your profession.
Right. If
you're an attorney, you know, you got to go to law school. You're not going to be an attorney by not going to law school, right? If you want to be an engineer, you got to go to engineering school, right? You know, if you're going to be a doctor, you got to go to medical school. Now, if you want to be a business owner, would finance classes help you? Yes. You know, depends on what you want to do. If you want to be a marketer, is it going to help you? No,
definitely not.
If you're going to be a salesperson, it's going to help you? No. So I can't be like one-sided or not, because it depends on your profession.
Yeah, you can't generalize it.
Yeah, it's hard to generalize that. Like I get it. Like I went to school for behavioral science because I wanted to be a psychologist.
Yeah.
Okay. But after I was starting to make, you know, way more money than my professors were, and I was only working 4 months every summer, and I started having a corporate career with what's now called Vivint in Salt Lake City, Utah, I just didn't have time. So I dropped out my senior year. I have 11 credits left.
Wow.
Yeah. I have 11
Does it still
credits
haunt you, or you don't care?
No, not I don't care about it. I learned way more about behavioral science and human psychology outside of university.
Really?
Sure. Well, I started taking like Online courses were a thing back then. It started coming around. So I was taking courses from like professors from like Yale and Harvard on brain science and stuff like that. You can still take it. It just didn't count towards your degree.
That makes sense.
So,
did you teach your two kids sales, or they weren't interested?
You know, my kids are, you know, I've got one that works for 7th level.
Okay.
Quincy, she's on the customer service team. She works there. She does really well. And then my oldest, Cammie's almost 23. She's about to graduate from Arizona State University.
Nice.
She was going to be an English professor, but now she's like, Dad, I think I might want to do copywriting. So now my VP of marketing is actually having her go through courses and stuff, learning copyright. And then because I have 5 kids.
Oh,
and then
5 kids.
I know, yeah, you know, we gotta have a basketball team here, you know? And so my 18, she just turned 19. She was going to school at Mesa Community College. And probably about a month ago, she's like, Dad, I just don't, you know, I'm going to school for social media, but I'm not learning anything about social media.
Oh, they teach that in school?
They have a associate's degree at our school, social media. But she's like, I'm not learning anything about social media. So I got her in touch with my VP of marketing, which is amazing at ads and copywriting and all that stuff. And he's having her go through like hundreds of hours of courses. She's like, this is awesome. So like I said, it depends on what you want to do. Social media, do you need to go to college? Probably not. Marketing, probably not. You want to, you want to be a CFO of a company, probably good to learn finance for sure. You just want to go to school. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
One of the things that I thought was interesting that you advise your salespeople is you don't want them to use the F word in their sales pitches.
Yeah. What do you mean by the F word?
Like the curse word, the F word, like you don't let them use it on the first call. I saw a clip about it.
Well, I have a bunch of clips about like, you don't want to use the word follow up.
Okay.
So
like,
that
F word.
Yeah, that's the F word. Yeah.
Got it.
Well, I don't want them to cuss. I mean, we represent some big brands. You know, we represent 2 Fortune 100 companies. We represent quite a few Fortune 500 and several Fortune 1000. We definitely don't want our salespeople on calls with them like throwing the F-bomb down.
Right.
It depends on who you're talking to, right? If you're talking to like a entrepreneur who's like a coach who sells, you know, whatever, maybe they go with that. But there's no reason for that. But I think the reel you're talking about was like, hey, don't use the word follow-up. So when you call back a prospect that maybe didn't buy, and you're calling back 3 months, like, hey, you know, Sean, I was just following up with you. Or when you get an email, because you get emails, right? So you get the emails that are like 3 or 4 paragraphs long.
Hate them.
And the first sentence is like, hey, just checking in.
Oh, cringe.
They'd already talked to you, just checking in. Immediately, what do you think?
Negative experience.
Yeah, because you think they're just trying to sell me something.
Yeah.
So those are trigger words. So salespeople use a lot of trigger words and they don't realize what they're doing is triggering sales resistance, just like you did.
Right.
Checking in and follow up, you're like, oh, cringe. Those are trigger words. So you've got to relanguage some of your words where they're a little bit more neutral. Like, hey, John, I know we spoke a couple months ago about you guys looking at getting a higher quality lead so you scale to $10 million a month. Have you guys given up on that, or what actually happened?
Yeah.
See, now I'm focused on the problem and the objective, whereas the other guy was like, oh, I'm just checking in to see where we're at with your XYZ. Like, that's just a trigger word.
Cringe.
So you're going to trigger sales resistance. And so many salespeople trigger sales resistance where the guard comes up. And I'm like, why don't you learn how to get them to let their guard down? Because then it becomes really easy to sell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're great at establishing trust, right? There was a recent study done. Trust is at an all-time low in the past, I think, 40 years. So how are you able to establish trust with your clients?
Most of it is your tonality. Yeah, so I might say things that you're like very counterintuitive that you've ever heard of, but is the way the brain works. There's 3 parts of your brain, and I won't give everybody the scientific terms because it'll bore you to death. But you have like your survival part of your brain. A lot of people call that the reptilian brain. You have your midbrain area. I'll just keep it short, and then you have your neocortex, which is your problem-solving part of your brain. So when you get a telemarketing call and you say in 10 seconds, not interested, you literally didn't even have time to hear the words they said. You said that, you went into fight or flight mode based on the tonality of the salesperson. Probably sounded scripted, probably sounded talking fast, nervous, excited. That's your survival part of your brain. So every human being has defensive mechanisms that we built up where we try to protect ourselves. So let me give you an example. Let's say that you're walking into a grocery store and you're just casually walking in, thinking about whatever, right? And you hear this lady scream like, oh my, she just yells. You instantly will react that because her tone went into your survival part of your brain. So you instantly react. It's like, you know, a million years ago, whenever God put the first humans on the planet, I don't know when that was, that's debatable. The saber-toothed tiger, you're like, whoa, you react.
Right.
That's fight or flight. That's your survival part of your brain, okay? That's based on her tone. Now, within about second and a half to 2 seconds, that her words then go from your survival brain. Survival brain didn't hear the words. Then it goes into what's called your midbrain, where your midbrain starts to decipher what she just said. And then it goes immediately to your neocortex, and it's like, oh, she's just yelling at her kid crossing the street to be careful. That's what happens.
Wow.
But it all started in your survival part of your brain.
Interesting.
So as a salesperson, when you come across like really excited, oh, hey, welcome into the car dealership. Welcome to the dealership today. How can I help you? I'm so excited for you to be here. You just instantly are triggering sales resistance in most people because they don't hear your words. They hear your tone.
Wow.
And what do you instantly do? Just looking.
Yeah.
You see, you just triggered fight or flight mode in that prospect.
Right.
And now it's awkward. But if I'm like, hey, welcome into the store today. Are you guys just out kind of looking around? See how I'm feeding back their objection? They wouldn't automatically give me this. Hey, welcome into the dealership today. Are you guys just kind of out looking around? Yeah, we're out looking. Ah, okay. And do you know what you're looking for? Curious tone, right? See, now I'm engaging them. Okay. But I can cause a prospect to let their guard down simply by how I use my tone. So if I'm cold calling, let me give an example. Because I had to learn this in B2B. My second industry I got into was high-level enterprise B2B stuff. So I'm calling Fortune 1000 companies, few Fortune 500, maybe Fortune 1000, maybe usually the top 5,000 companies, like probably 1,000 to 5,000. That was kind of the range. So when I'm calling these C-level executives or whoever they were, I had to build familiarity. I can do that with my voice. Yeah, is this John? Yeah, John. Hey, it's Jeremy. Yeah, Jeremy Minor. See, I raised my voice intentionally. Yeah, it's just Jeremy. It's Jeremy Minor. Okay. Now, if somebody called you and they said, "Hey, Sean, it's Jeremy. It's Jeremy Minor," and they kept talking, you know what your brain would do? How do I know Jeremy Minor? How do I know Jeremy Minor? You're instantly searching, and you don't want to look like an ASS and be like, "Who is this?"
Right.
Because my tone just seeded what? That Curiosity. You should know me.
Right.
That I'm familiar. Now, if I didn't raise my tone there, yeah, it's Jeremy. Jeremy Minor. See what I'm doing there? So when have you ever got a call where someone's like, "Hey, it's Amy, it's Amy Smith," and you're just like, you don't say like, "Who is this?" You're like, "Oh, hey, Amy, how's it going?" Because you don't want to appear like you don't know her.
You just go with it.
You just go with it, right? But my tone is the one that caused that. If I'm like, "Yeah, is Amy there?" "Hey, Amy, it's Jeremy Minor at the XYZ company. Hey, the reason why I called you was," you're like, "Oh, salesperson."
Yeah.
Your guard goes up, but I can shift my tone to introduce familiarity with that person just by raising it and then lowering it back. So I'll give you an example like this. And I did this with I'll show you a sales example. Like, let's say if you sell, we train 161 different industries, so it's hard for me to pick one now. Let's say if you're let's say you're an investor and you're calling a distressed property, that wholesaling. You know, I'm friends with a Cody now and a Pace Morby. I love that guy and stuff. That's their industry. And, you know, we teach a lot of salespeople in the industry. So we teach them how to like print off property tax records of the homes they're looking at. So like right here, I'll use this like, so I learned how to do this as like a pattern interrupt. Everything in sales, you have to learn how to interrupt patterns that they already think about salespeople. Okay. You don't want to sound like everybody. You sound like everybody else, they treat you like everybody else, right? How are salespeople viewed in society at large?
Pretty negatively, right?
Lower status.
Yeah.
So how do you raise your status? Where they view you as the expert. They can solve their problems and get where they get them where they want. So as a pattern interrupt, when I'm cold calling, I'm shuffling papers where they can hear it on the phone, right? So because that triggers curiosity. It keeps the mind like they don't know what's going on, okay? Nobody else is doing that. So let's say for an investor, yeah, is this John? John, hey, it's Jeremy, Jeremy Minor. I'm holding a copy of your property tax records there on your home at, I think it's a 55 Willow Lane there in Savannah. I was wondering if you could possibly help me out for a moment. Now notice what I did there. Yeah, I'm holding a copy of your property tax records there on your home at 55 Willow Lane there in Savannah. I was wondering if you could possibly help me out for a moment.
Right.
You will never have anybody like, no, I'm not interested. Because what did I do? I'm shuffling papers. They don't know if I'm a clerk. They don't know what, right? In that industry, they don't know if I'm a clerk. I'm shuffling papers and I'm saying I'm holding a copy of your property tax. See how I slowed down my voice and tone. Most salespeople, when they cold call, hey, is this John? Hey, John, it's Jeremy Minor from Maybe I See Company. Hey, the reason why I called you was, and they start going into their spill. And prospect is just over. You just triggered fight or flight mode because you
Yep.
sound like what? A telemarketer.
Yeah.
Reading a script. And then what I do at that point is they're like, well, and they're like, well, sure, how can I help you? Or you have my property tax records? Yeah, we always print these. They always have us print these off. And I'm not even sure if it would make sense for us to talk yet. So I push them away a little bit because you don't go into your solution. You got to push them away a little bit. Like you can't have it. Yeah, and I'm not even sure if it makes sense for us to talk. I represent a group of buyers they're buying like, I want to say like 4 or 5 different properties there in like your 4-block area by your Willow Lane home. And after they had me go through your tax records on the property, they asked me to call you to see if you would be maybe opposed to having a brief conversation on maybe even selling that home. Would you be opposed to talking about that? Now, why would I say be opposed? Why wouldn't I say, well, would you be open?
I get that a lot. Yeah.
Why would I say opposed? Why would I say, would you be opposed to having a conversation like that? Why would I say opposed? Why would I say, would you be open? See, a lot of sales trainers are like, you got to get them to say yes 75 times.
Yeah, I heard that.
Okay, there's no data that shows that. In most contexts, I actually want them to say no because it actually leads to the yes, right? Like if I'm a political fundraiser and let's say I'm a Republican, right? You know, they're trying to win back the White House. I have no political affiliations, guys. I'm like right down the middle. I think I'll let you guys all battle it out. I'm an independent voter. I'm actually registered independent. But let's say if I'm a Republican fundraiser person, I'm trying to win the back. How about, are you going to let Joe Biden take back the White House this year? No. See, I want them to say no because that gets them closer to say the yes. Do you see what I'm doing?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's a different way to look at. So if I'm on a cold call, what's the word that the prospect wants to say? No. So see how I'm using techniques that work with human behavior rather than against it. They're already pre-wired to say no. So I'm going to say, would you be opposed to having a conversation around that? It's hard for them to say, yes, I'd be opposed.
Yeah.
See the difference?
I love that. So you're pretty much just guiding the conversation.
Yeah. Sales is all about, you're the facilitator and you're taking this prospect, could be a company, could be an individual, on this journey. And it's really, it's a beautiful experience because I look at selling as, you know, I'm a problem finder and problem solver, right? If they don't buy from me, I'm not a problem solver. Problem solving doesn't happen until after they buy, until I solve the problems. To be great at sales, you have to be really good at problem finding. And that's helping the prospect find problems they didn't realize they had. Because when you first talk to a prospect, most of them, for the most part, don't even know they have a problem. Or maybe they know they have a problem if it's an inbound lead, but they don't really understand how bad the problem is. They don't understand the depth of it. They don't understand the consequences of what happens if they don't do anything about solving the problem, right? So it's a beautiful situation where you, like the facilitator, you're taking them down this yellow brick road and you're helping them through your questions and your tone open up emotionally, because that's where the sale's made, not through logic. Open up emotionally and really tell themselves why they want to change their situation. That's called self-persuasion. It's the highest form of persuasion there is.
Wow. I never realized how much emotion went into sales.
Well, every decision you make is emotional.
Really?
I feel like having a drink of water. You feel like talking to me right now.
You got me messed up right now.
You feel like putting your hands in that clasp. You feel like looking up right now. See, every decision you make starts with your emotional side of your brain.
Wow.
You cannot make decisions logically. It's just, that's against science.
What?
Yeah. I feel like having a drink. And after this, I feel like I need to go to the bathroom.
Isn't that logic?
I feel like I have to go to the bathroom.
Oh, you feel like, okay.
Don't you feel like I'm like, oh man, I got to pee. I need to go to the bathroom.
Right.
Yeah, that's a feeling.
Wow.
That's your emotional side of your brain.
Because they say certain people like with autism or like super successful people like don't show emotion, but I guess
Everybody has emotion. When I got into B2B sales, they're like, Jeremy, you don't understand. You can't ask questions to these CEOs. They all want stats and facts. I'm like, so are they human? Yeah, because every human has an emotional side of the brain. So maybe the question you just haven't learned yet how to get them to emotionally open up to you because they don't trust you.
Right.
You know, so and most of the way you get a person to open up to you emotionally is how you use your tone, because your tone is how the prospect interprets the intention behind what you're saying. Your tone is how they interpret the intention behind what you're asking. Like let's say if you're upset at a friend and you come at him and you're like, I'm so pissed off at you, man. And your arms out like this with that type of tone, what are they going to do? They're going to get defensive.
Right.
They're like, well, hey man, I didn't do, but if I come in there, I'm like, I'm so disappointed in you, man. Is that going to get them defensive, or do they feel like I care about them?
Care.
Even though I'm disappointed, I still care.
Right.
And that lets their guard down. Simply by my shifting my tone, lowering a tone in a concerned tone, and with my hand on my chest, it shows that I'm upset, but I still love and care for them. So it causes them to let their guard down.
That is so impressive. So you don't even get in arguments.
I mean, I'm not saying I'm definitely not perfect. I've definitely gotten arguments, but I try to diffuse those arguments for sure.
Right. With emotion.
Like I said, every decision, like let's say you're in the military, give an example, and a grenade goes off and your emotional side of your brain gets damaged. You can't decide to go to the bathroom. You're a vegetable.
Right.
It's just science.
Yeah. Never thought of it that way.
You make decisions emotionally, but you justify with logic. But you don't make decisions logically and justify with emotion. That's just human behavior 101.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
Now I have that advantage. I went to school for behavioral science and social dynamics, so that's what you learn.
So that really affected your personal relationships too, probably, because you're able to read people and stuff.
Part of it. You don't learn all of that by a professor.
Right.
You learn a lot of that. Like most of the sales training we teach, I didn't really learn from sales trainers because I viewed sales trainers as mainly transactional. They're like, hey, let me give you some information so you can make an informed decision. I'm like, well, that just puts them in logical-based thinking because you're giving them information, right? Information is logical-based thinking. And rather than me saying, do you think this could be for you? That's logical-based thinking. Now they're thinking. I would say, do you feel like this could be the answer for you? Feel. I want to keep them on their emotional side of their brain.
Wow.
So it's a shift. Now, where did I learn like advanced tonality and body language? Not from sales trainers because nobody knows it. Most people don't have that background, right?
Yeah.
So I learned body language and tonality from like acting instructors.
Really?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, who's your favorite actor, actress?
Leonardo DiCaprio.
Okay, that's a perfect example. One of the best for body language and tonality ever. So why do you feel like you stay so engaged in his movies?
He's just so good at each role, man. I don't know how to describe it.
Do you know why you feel like he's so good?
He just portrays the character so well.
Yeah, because when you watch him, everything he says is pretty much 100% scripted. But does it sound scripted?
No.
No, because you just said it. You view him not as Leo in The Wolf of Wall Street. You view him not as Jack in Titanic. You view him as the character he's portraying. Do you know why you view him that way? Because of his tonality, his facial expressions, his body language. That's why you view him that way. That's why he keeps you engaged. Because one of the first things they'll train you on, and different instructors are different, but they'll train you a lot on facial expressions. So how to use your facial expressions to change your tonality. Because if you just watched a movie with him and he just talked like this the whole time, and every scene he just talked with the same monotone voice, and his facial expressions were just all the same, and they didn't really move at all, you would tune out in 5 or 10 minutes. You would never hear of him. He'd still be waiting tables or something. But because he's like, oh my gosh, and he can shift on his facial expressions. I always say your facial expressions are the remote control to your tone. Try having a confused tone and don't move your face.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah,
Try having a challenging tone and not move your face. What if you don't do anything about this and it gets worse? See, I have to shift my facial expression. That causes my tone to change. So even if I'm only on the phone, I still have to change my facial expression, use my body language, because that affects how my tone comes across. So if you're like in a sales situation or a prospect says, oh my gosh, this has just caused us so much stress. Stress? See, my facial expression goes into how do you mean by stress? See, confused tone. Right?
Yeah.
So you might see, we train all this in our virtual training portals, but we let out little snippets, in the reels. And I'll talk about a confused tone. They're like, you can't sound confused. You got to sound like you're the expert. I agree. You don't go through your presentation like, oh, I'm confused how this works. I don't know how it works. But in certain context, I want to have a confused tone. So if they give me an emotional word, like if let's say if we're selling, let's say you work for a marketing agency. I know you're about to interview Austin here that we work with, and he's a marketing agency, and his rep's talking to somebody about their leads, right? And the prospect's like, oh my gosh, like our leads gen has been so bad the last 7 months. It's just caused a lot of tension in the firm. Hold on, how do you mean by tension? Now, what happens subconsciously here in their brain? That's a clarifying question. Oh, hold on, how do you mean by tension? Because I have that confused tone, what triggers in their subconscious is this. he didn't understand what I meant by tension. I need to explain that more.
Mm.
And so what he does is then he goes below the surface and he expands on what he means by tension. That helps the prospect relive their pain of that problem.
Yeah.
See, what are the two biggest emotional drivers that causes a human being to want to change? Pain, or the fear of future pain. So as a sales professional, if you can't help your prospects relive their pain of their problems or have a fear of future pain, they don't feel any need to change. And when they feel no need to change, that's why you get a ton of objections. And that's why they don't buy from you. So you want to help them relive their pain. But I couldn't do that on that emotional word if I didn't use a confused tone.
Yeah.
Because the confused tone causes their brain to say, he didn't understand me. I need to clarify that better.
Wow.
Simply by using my tone.
So fascinating.
If I would have used a curious tone, that wouldn't have worked at all.
Yeah.
There you
Taking
go.
acting classes to learn this is super fascinating to me too.
Yeah.
Because no one would have thought of that.
Well, it's your body language and it's your tonality. That's actually how you influence people even more than your words. Now, words are important. Your questions are important because it gets them to internalize what you're asking. But one of the biggest reasons why salespeople they'll ask questions and they'll get a lot of vague, generalized, surface level answers is because they ask the question so fast, the prospect has no time to internalize what they're asking. And so they just get a knee-jerk reaction. But if I'm asking a question and I slow down and I verbal pace the question out, so I'm not understanding. Walk me through, because let's say if I sold solar, I just throw something out, just doing a solar portal the other day. So what happens if you guys don't do anything about this? And Duke Energy, they keep raising your rates every year like they always have, but now you're 70, 75 years old, still having to pay the bill, but now it's 3 times as high and you're on a limited income. I mean, how would you pay for it at that point?
Yeah.
See, I'm verbal pacing that out. That's a long question. If I said it fast, you'd be like, oh, I don't know, we'd figure something out. But because I verbal pause in there and I verbal pace it out, it causes the prospect to think deeper and internalize what I just asked. That's where the emotions come out. Two great people, I'll give you an example, that are really good at verbal pacing out and verbal pausing. I know this sounds crazy.
Yeah.
Is Tony Robbins is really good. That's why he can move an audience.
Yep.
Because he'll just talk real fast and then he'll just stop, verbal pause for 3 seconds, let it sink in, and everybody's like crying, right?
Incredible.
And President Obama was really good at that.
Yep.
When he would talk on stage, he'd be like, I have a hope. I have a vision for you. And we can be working on that together. Some people make fun of him, but that's why he moved people. That's why they're so emotional, okay? Because that's not something you're born with.
No.
Somebody taught him that.
The pause, man, it's powerful.
Verbal pausing is so powerful.
Ed Milet's good at it too. I've seen him talk on a few stages.
Yeah. So selling is it's all about your skills game.
Yeah.
I love like cold plunges and reading personal development books and working out. Those are all really good for your personal life, but they don't really help you sell more. They just don't. Like I've seen the most unathletic people they don't read one personal development book at all. They just read sales training and they're making 5 times more than the guy that's like the most ripped, personal development guy in the world. Now that's all good. I mean, you want to be in shape because you're going to live longer, right? You want to be healthy, right? But it doesn't necessarily help you sell more when the prospect says hello. If you don't know what to say and ask that causes them to let their guard down, there's no sale.
So sales like the great equalizer. Age, gender, race doesn't even matter.
Doesn't
sounds
matter,
like,
man. You can have purple hair, 5 arms, no arms, freaking 5 foot tall, 7 foot tall. It's all about the tonality, your body language, and what you're saying and asking that's going to cause the prospect to open up and emotionally become involved and attached to wanting to solve the problem, or give you a ton of objections and there's no sale.
Interesting. Do you prefer phone calls or in-person sales?
Me, I prefer, because I've done both because I was in 4 industries. I prefer virtual or in person because I can read their body language better. If you're on the phone, your disadvantage is you can't read their body language, but you can still read their tone.
Right.
So as a salesperson, you have to really start to, one of the principles of what we call the new model of selling, or NEPQ, my methodology, neuro emotional persuasion questions, is you have to listen to what the prospect means, not just what they say. Those are 2 separate things. So if I said, do you feel like this could be the answer for you? And you're like, yeah. Well, a lot of salespeople are like, great, let me show you how to get started. But what I just heard is uncertainty, that they kind of do, but they have some concerns. So I'm going to sound like, hold on, you didn't seem so sure about that when I asked that. What's going on? Well, I'm just concerned about Now they tell me the real concern.
Right.
Because I'm listening to what they mean, not just what they say. What they meant, I heard in their tonality, was they were still uncertain a bit. So if I just kind of tried to close them, they were like, well, I need some time to think it over. And then you don't get the real objection. If a prospect ever says, I want to think it over, is that really an objection? Like, do they sit there for 3 weeks thinking it over? Every day on a piece of paper, writing out the pros and cons? No. They have a concern that they're not wanting to tell you. So they're trying to be nice to you by saying, like, you still have a chance.
Right.
I'm going to tell you, I'm going to think it over. That's not an objection. It's their concern. And you've got to get them to let their guard down so they tell you the real concern. But I want to think it over. That's not even a real concern.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. Do you even use scripts or you just go feel
no,
out?
We definitely use sales structures. Otherwise, you're winging it.
Okay.
Now, you have to use sales structure. So when we come into an industry, you know, we have to look, like I said, the formula is, what are the problems the prospects have? Okay. What are the consequences if those problems don't get solved for the prospect?
Mm-hmm.
And then how does that company's solution solve that? Then we write out what are called connection questions that help disarm the prospect, take the focus off you, put it on them. Then we write out what are called situation questions that help you and the prospect both understand what their real situation is. Because most prospects don't know what their real situation is when you first start talking to them.
Mm-hmm.
They have an idea, but they don't really understand it fully, okay? Then we go into what are called problem awareness questions that help build a gap from where they are to where they want to be. That's where you're helping them find problems they didn't realize they had, right? If I can help the prospect find 2, 3, 4, 5 problems they didn't know they had, rather than one problem they thought they had, how much more likely are they to buy? Oh, 100% way more. Because maybe they think, oh, maybe I can solve this problem myself. But if I help them find 5 other problems, they're like, maybe I can solve this, but I can't solve the other 4 things.
Right.
It eliminates most objections. And then we go into what are called solution awareness questions that get them to focus on what the future looks like once the newfound problems are solved, future pacing. And then we want to rip that away from them by asking them what are called consequence questions that get them to defend themselves on why they want to change and change now. And then if we're in a one-call close like B2C, we're going to go into our presentation. If we're in a more of a complex sound environment where maybe it's hell, if you're selling SMB, it could be a 2 or 3 call close. If it's a small company, if it's a large enterprise, it could be a 9-month sales process. Yeah. So we're then going to transition to whatever your next step is. If you sell SaaS, maybe next step demo. Next step meeting with the department head or whatever. And then wherever we're at in that sales process, we're then going to ask what are called NEPQ commitment questions that get them to commit to take the next step and purchase what you're offering. So that's why everybody does this. Like, how are you guys able to duplicate in every industry? Well, it's because of that formula. If we didn't have that formula, we wouldn't be able to duplicate, right? And it's not just sticking to the script. See, this is a different. It's like a Hollywood actor, actress. They stick to the script, but do they sound scripted? No, but everything they pretty much say is pretty much 100% scripted.
Yeah, that's
right?
true.
But it doesn't sound like that. So we train salespeople how to really memorize the questions and retain them, but also be able to be flexible, where when they ask situation questions based off the answers they're getting, the next questions they're having to relanguage them a little bit based on the data they're just got. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So we have to be flexible with our scripts. If you're just reading a script, you're a telemarketer, you sound scripted, it's over.
Yeah. You mentioned 131 industries you're in?
161.
161. Do you have...
Do you know how many there are?
No, how many are there actually?
Forbes, well, according to Forbes, they come out with this data every year. There's 163.
So you're in almost all of them?
Yes. Now, there are subsets of each one.
Okay.
So let me give you an example. Home improvement's a big industry we train in.
Yeah.
It's like the 5th or 6th largest, I don't remember. There's doors. There's windows. There's garages. My friend Tommy Mel, love Tommy. You want him on a show, I'd love to introduce him. He's a great guy. Tommy's great. I just play pool with him the other night. He's really good. He kicked my ass, actually. Thank you, Tommy.
Pool's a hard game.
I thought I was good. I usually beat everybody, and he beat me 7 out of 8 times. But Tommy, you've got siding, you've got awnings, you've got sheds, you've got decks, you've got cabinet repair, you got tile, you got carpeting, you got countertops. I mean, there's 37 different subcategories in each industry.
Got it.
We're pretty much in most of those.
That's nuts, man.
Yeah.
So out of those 161, which ones do you see a lot of potential in the next few years? I know AI is a hot one.
I mean, AI is a big one. You know, there's a big company we train now that they do AI for like hospitals and doctors. You know, like doctors have to record their notes, they have to dictate their notes. And it usually takes the average doctor about 2 hours a day.
Damn.
To do that.
Oh, do they write it or they talk?
They talk, some talk, some write it, but they have to be very accurate because if they mess up, it could cause an accident where a patient dies because you get the wrong way. Yeah. Or the insurance company, if they write it in wrong or dictate it wrong, doesn't pay them. Doesn't pay them.
Yeah.
But that 2 hours a day, what else could they be doing? Seeing more patients.
Yeah.
That's 2 more billable hours a day. It could be having more time at home instead of up at midnight, dictating notes because they didn't have time, right? So AI does it all for them. So that's a big industry. I see a lot of potential in solar is a huge industry that we train in. Even age-old life insurance. That's the biggest industry we train now.
Really?
Oh, we train tens of thousands in that space. We train, one company has like 27,000 agents we train now. Just one company alone. Life insurance is a huge industry train. SaaS is a big industry for us. Home improvement. I see so much potential in every industry, but the potential is really based on your sales skills.
Do you aim for a specific price range that you found is like the sweet spot, or price doesn't even matter for you?
For like the industries?
For just like sales in general?
Like as a sales training company, or from their perspective? What do you mean?
From a sales training company, like do you offer different packages?
We do. We have 36 different sales training programs for like individual salespeople, but then our corporate sales training is all customized based on what they need.
Got it.
Some of them might want sales audits where we even go look at their email campaigns and other stuff. Others might want script writing. Others might be, they want sessions or they want a combination, you know, like Nuvia Smiles. You ever heard of them?
Is that a teeth whitening company?
Dental implants. They're huge. I mean, they're like 700 some million a year, but they're one of our clients now. And they wanted script writing. They wanted like group training for a while. And depending on the size of the deal's a big deal. Usually I'm involved with that.
Yeah.
If it's a smaller deal, it's more of our sales trainers and stuff like that.
That's cool, man. Your results must be really good if you're working with these Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies.
We only have 2 Fortune 100 companies.
Only 2, but still.
Well, we're still young, you know. Hopefully in 10 or 15 years, we'll have a few more and stuff. But you know, we try to, like I said, we're more focused on results of the clients more than just making money, because that affects your brand.
Right.
A lot of companies will scale and they'll make a lot of money, but then fulfillment suffers because they just grow too fast. They outgrow fulfillment of their clients. We grow pretty steady. I mean, we've grown pretty fast. We could probably double it like this year right now, but our clients would suffer and we just won't do that because our brand like is the most important thing to us. So our brand is based off our clients' results.
You care a lot about reputation.
Yeah, it's probably important. Yeah. And I'm not talking about people on Reddit that have never bought our sales training programs. Like, I met with that salesperson and their course was $5,000. They're a scam. Well, it sucks to be you, because you'd probably be selling a lot more had you invested that money. I love the Reddit people. Like we go through, we see people say that, and we're like, we go through fulfillment people get it, and like, none of those are clients. Wow, interesting.
Reddit and Twitter, man, those are toxic platforms.
Oh, really?
I don't know what it is about those. I don't do much
on Twitter, but yeah, somebody pointed me out some comments on Twitter. I was like, well, see if any of those people are former clients or anything. Zero clients.
Yeah, seems like I get some hate too, and it's always just like, I don't know, just like people I don't care about, not to be like.
Well, you know, like when you do reels or anything, you're going to have like 95% of the people that love it. And then there's going to be that 1 or 2 people like, that wouldn't work. There's no way that would work. And you're just like, okay, dude.
Yeah.
Okay, bro.
Yeah, I used to let it like affect me, but it's not worth dwelling over.
You don't have time, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, anybody, like, think about yourself. Like, I think myself like 10 years ago, where I was at as a salesperson, I would have never had time. Even if I thought something was so dumb and it never worked, I just wouldn't comment on it because I don't care. Right? I'm busy doing my own thing. Why would I care about somebody else?
Yeah.
It's just weird.
Yeah.
You know, I'm too busy doing my own thing.
Absolutely.
You know?
Are you working 7 days a week still?
Full disclosure, most of the time, sometimes I do. Yeah.
Wow.
But it's not crazy. I'm a, you know, I come from like the Boy Scout world.
Okay.
So I'm all about preparation. So when I have a keynote, like I'm rehearsing that keynote probably 8 to 12 times.
Damn.
Yeah, because we make our keynotes industry specific. We don't just show up and like just talk about whatever for 30 minutes or off the stage. Like, typically when companies do keynotes, a lot of them will be like, hey, we want you for 45 or 60 minutes. I'm like, I won't do it unless you give me 90 minutes. Just pay me the same thing. But I have to bring value to your audience. So if you give me 90, I'll do it for that same price. But if you want to do 45, I'm out.
Wow.
Because I don't feel like it's worth my time. I don't feel like it's worth the audience's time.
So you need a full 90 to really captivate.
At least 60.
Okay.
Yeah, I've done a few 45, very rarely. I've done a few 60. It's mainly 60 to 90 minutes. But usually what I always do at the very end, because about half of it is the same. Because you can't change your keynotes every time because it's too much work. And it's not enough money. If you're building your, if I'm depending on keynote fees to build a sales training company, I'm in trouble. If you're not going to get $1 million per keynote, you know, it's just not realistic. So when you go in there, half of my keynotes will be the same for everything, but then the other half I make industry specific. So, and I can do that because we already train their industry. So it's very easy. I can just pull scripts from our clients, the companies, and I relanguage them a little bit, and then I throw them up on there. And the last thing I always leave, I was like, hey, now, who wants to learn? Because I'm always usually overtime. You know, and I try to, the salespeople, like when they're learning how to sell, they're like, keep them on, don't let them off. You know, like they're screaming at the people as the music comes. They're like, no. And so it kind of forces the people to like, okay, we got to keep them on. You know, the audience wants it. But I always leave the lessons like, whoever gets a prospect that says, I want to think it over at the end. Do you want to learn how to prevent that objection from you? Do you want to learn actually how to overcome that objection? I'd be like, yes, please. I always save that for last because it forces them to like keep me on stage another 3 or 4 minutes. Yeah. And I'll role play with somebody and everybody's like, yeah. So we just, you know, we're a sales training company. So as a sales training company, you have to teach people how to sell. Yeah. Yeah. I don't need to teach them how to set goals and motivate themselves. I think most of them kind of already know how to do that. I need to teach them what to say. I need to teach them what to ask. And I teach them how to use your tone and body language so they can sell more. Because at the end of the day, that causes you to sell more. Yeah. Nothing else.
Yeah. We were talking before. I think that's why people love you because it's so tactical. It's so implementable that people can do it that day instead of just like an ideology.
We have over, it fluctuates, but I just asked our fulfillment director the other day. I think we have a little bit under 20,000 client testimonials now.
Wow.
Now, even from our free content, we don't count those at all for free content, but I bet you we have probably triple that just from free content.
I get messages daily just from the podcast clips. Imagine what you're doing.
You know, it is. Yeah. But I'm not talking about like keynotes or like testimonies like, oh, Jeremy's a really cool guy. You know, I'm talking about, you know, hey, I implemented this from your sales training course, like your 2.0. And I used to make $5,000 a month and now I make 16. You know, like real life, like ROI testimonials. That's what we count. That's important for us. Or like, you know, as a company, they're like, man, our revenue, like, you know, more than doubled this year. Or like, let's say if we take a Fortune 1000 company and we helped them, you know, increase sales by 29%. A Fortune 1000 company that's already doing like $1 billion a year, another 29%. That's hard to do because there's so many people involved in that. You can't force 2 salespeople to go through a portal like it's a whole management team. So you know, it made an extra $290 million this year.
Crazy.
You know, so those are the type of client results that we like. Yeah.
Well, Jeremy, where can people find out more about you and where can people work with you?
Yeah, so if they want to learn more about us, there's a couple different options. I even brought a book. I left it over there somewhere. I don't even know. So they can get our Barnes & Noble bestseller. It's a Wall Street Journal bestseller, Barnes & Noble bestseller. I think Amazon too. You go to barnesandnoble.com. It's called The New Model of Selling to an Unsellable Generation with me and Jerry Acuff, my co-author. It's a good book to start. Now, are you going to double, triple your sales from a book? More than likely not, because it's hard for you to retain it because you don't learn any tonality. Right. You're just reading words, right? There's a whole nother story. It's a good book to start with for sure. And then let's have them go to, they can follow me on Instagram, you know, Jeremy Lee Miner, M-I-N-E-R. And you can also go to our Facebook group, salesrevolution.pro. That's the biggest one, salesrevolution.pro. We've got 100-some thousand in there. We do Q&As, different trainings there 2 or 3 times a week. So they can always message me in there and somebody will message them back some different training options. That's a good place.
Cool. We'll link it all below. Thanks for coming on, man.
There you go, man. Thanks. Yeah. Hey, I really appreciate you. You know, Austin told me a lot about you here like a week ago. And, you know, I'm always studying like body language experts and tonality and stuff like that. So I don't study a lot of people in your space and everything. But I listened to 4 of your shows.
Wow.
I listened to you and Michael Sartain,
yeah.
Because I'm on his show later today, and I was really impressed. So well done.
Thanks, man. It means a lot, especially coming from you.
Hey, you know, you're a really good interview, like Dr. Phil, man. Good stuff.
That means a lot to me because I was a huge introvert growing up. It's something I've worked on. So thank you so much.
Yeah, 100%. Hey, I'm in the middle. I think they call it ambivert. You have an extrovert.
I'll start calling myself that.
I'm like right in the middle. I'm both. Like, I can go on stage in front of 10,000 people and feel pretty comfortable, and then I can sit at dinner with 5 people and not say a word. Just
love that.
You know.
Yeah, I'm gonna start calling myself that.
Well, I like it, man.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, man.
Me on.
Yeah, thanks for watching, guys. As always, see you next time.